I'm Emily, 35, and if you'd asked me a few years ago, I'd have told you my life was just about perfect. I was climbing the corporate ladder at a renowned company, making my way to a department manager position. It was during those long hours at work that I stumbled upon something unexpected, something that wasn't part of my meticulously planned career path. Love. His name was Jake, a colleague from a different department. He wasn't as high up on the career ladder as I was, but that never mattered to me. Our connection was instant, and before we knew it, our office romance blossomed into something deeper, leading us down the aisle. The company we worked for was supportive. After all, it wasn't a secret affair, but a serious relationship that everyone could see was genuine. We were happy, living in a beautiful, spacious house that we bought together. It was more than a home. It was a symbol of our future, of the family we dreamed of starting. But our seemingly perfect life wasn't without its cracks. The main issue? Our earnings. I always earned more than Jake, and while it never bothered me, it was a thorn in his side. One chilly evening, as we sat in our living room, Jake brought it up yet again. Does it ever get to you? The whole money thing? He asked, his gaze fixed on the dancing flames in the fireplace. No, Jake, it really doesn't. I love you, not your paycheck. We're in this together, remember? I replied, trying to reassure him. He let out a long sigh. I just feel like I should be the one bringing in more, you know? It's not traditional. I reached for his hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. We're not a traditional couple, Jake. We make our own rules. We're happy, aren't we? He nodded, but his eyes didn't mirror the conviction in his voice. The topic was a recurring one, resurfacing every now and then, each time leaving a faint but lingering unease in the air. Life has a way of throwing you off course when you least expect it. That's exactly what happened to me, Emily, on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday. It was supposed to be a routine medical checkup, nothing more. I sat there in the sterile doctor's office, fidgeting with the hem of my shirt, waiting for the usual all clear. Instead, what I got was a jolt that turned my world upside down. The doctor, a kind-faced woman in her 50s, had a serious look as she delivered the news. Emily, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you have cancer, she said gently. For a moment, everything stood still. The word cancer echoed in my head like a dreadful bell. Fear, disbelief, a sense of unreality washed over me. What? Are you sure? I managed to stammer, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. The doctor nodded, her expression empathetic. I understand this is a lot to take in. We need to discuss your treatment options. Her voice faded into the background as I grappled with the shock. Cancer? Me? It didn't make sense. I was healthy, or so I thought. When I left the doctor's office, I felt like I was in a daze. The world seemed to go on around me, but I was stuck in that moment of devastating revelation. I called Jake as soon as I could. He answered after a few rings. Hey Em, how did the checkup go? His voice was casual, expecting routine news. Jake, it's not good, I said, my voice shaky. What's wrong? Talk to me, Em, he replied, his tone shifting to concern. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. It's cancer, Jakey. I have cancer. There was a heavy silence on the other end. Then, oh God, Em, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Where are you? I'm still at the clinic. I'm not okay, Jakey. I'm scared, I admitted, feeling a lump forming in my throat. I'll come right over. We'll face this together, Em. You're not alone, he said firmly. Hearing his words, a small flicker of hope ignited within me. Maybe, just maybe, we could get through this nightmare together. The following days were a blur of appointments, tests, and consultations. I started my treatment, which included chemotherapy. It was exhausting, both physically and emotionally. Jake was supportive at first, accompanying me to my sessions, holding my hand, trying to be strong for both of us. But as the treatments took a toll on me, I noticed a change in Jake. His visits became less frequent. His reassurances felt more forced. Whenever I asked him why he couldn't come, he always had the same excuse. Work is just crazy right now, Em. I'm so tired by the end of the day, he'd say over the phone. I tried to understand, to be sympathetic. After all, he was dealing with this in his own way, too. But deep down, I couldn't shake off the feeling of growing distance, the creeping sense of loneliness that started to envelop me. In those moments of solitude and struggle, I found an unexpected source of strength. My parents and my best friend, Lisa. They were my rocks, calling me daily, visiting me whenever they could, offering words of encouragement and love. While I was trying to adjust to my new reality in the hospital, undergoing treatment and dealing with the side effects, life outside continued. I missed our home, the comfort of our bed, the little rituals Jake and I had. Despite his decreasing visits, I clung to the hope that we were still a team. One day, Lisa came to visit. She brought some magazines, my favorite snacks, and a sense of normalcy that I craved. But there was something off about her. She seemed uneasy. "Hey, what's up? You seem a bit distracted," I said, trying to read her expression. Lisa hesitated before speaking. "Emily, I don't want to worry you, but something strange happened the other day." My heart skipped a beat. "What happened?" "Well, I was walking past your house, and I heard laughter. Loud, female laughter. It sounded like there was a party or something," she said cautiously. A cold shiver ran down my spine. A party? But Jake didn't mention anything. Maybe he had friends over. Lisa bit her lip, looking uncomfortable. "I don't know, Emily. It just felt weird. And I haven't seen Jake around much lately. I'm worried there might be someone else." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I didn't want to believe it, but the seeds of doubt were planted. Was Jake seeing someone else while I was stuck here, fighting for my life? "I need to know, Lisa. I can't just sit here wondering," I said, a sense of urgency rising within me. "I understand. But what are you going to do?" Lisa asked, her concern evident. "I need to go home. I need to see for myself," I decided, my mind made up. "But Emily, your treatment—" "I know. But I can't ignore this." "I have to know the truth," I interrupted, feeling a mix of anger, betrayal, and fear. Lisa helped me arrange for an early discharge. The doctors weren't thrilled, but my recent results were promising, and they agreed under the condition that I would continue my treatment on an outpatient basis. The drive home was nerve-wracking. Every possible scenario played out in my mind. I was scared of what I might find, yet I needed answers. As we pulled up to the house, everything looked normal from the outside. But the moment we stepped in, it was clear something was off. The place felt different, like it wasn't ours anymore. We heard voices coming from the living room. My heart pounded in my chest as we walked in, bracing for what we might find. To my utter shock, there was a couple sitting there, looking as surprised to see us as we were to see them. "Who are you? What are you doing in my house?" I demanded, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and disbelief. The woman, probably in her late 30s, stood up. "I'm sorry, but who are you? We're renting this place." "Renting? This is my house. I live here with my husband, Jake," I said, struggling to process her words. The man, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "We've been here for a couple of weeks. We made a deal with Jake. He said the house was going to be sold, and we're interested in buying it." My world came crashing down at that moment. Not only was there another woman in my house, but now I was being told that my husband, the man I trusted, was planning to sell our home without my knowledge. I felt like I was in a nightmare, one that I couldn't wake up from. As I stood in the living room of what was once a symbol of our shared dreams, the couple who had unwittingly walked into this mess looked at me with a mix of confusion and pity. They introduced themselves as Mark and Sandra, clearly uncomfortable but trying to be polite. I could hardly focus on their words. My mind was in turmoil. "Please, can you call Jake? I need to speak to him," I said, my voice shaky but firm. Mark nodded, taking out his phone. "Of course, I have his number. He said to call if we needed anything." The wait for Jake to arrive was agonizing. My heart raced with a cocktail of emotions: anger, betrayal, disbelief. When he finally walked in, the look on his face was one of shock, but not the kind I expected. "Emily, what are you doing here? You should be in the hospital," he said, his voice tinged not with concern, but annoyance. His reaction only fueled my anger. "What am I doing here?" "Jake? What are you doing?" Selling our house behind my back? He had the audacity to look irritated. I can explain, Emily. It's simple, really. Explain? Explain how you could betray me like this? My voice was rising despite my efforts to control it. Jake's expression hardened. Listen, Emily, you're sick. The cancer might not even go away. I have to think about my life too. I can't be tied down, waiting for whatever comes next. I felt like I had been slapped. His words were cruel, unrecognizable from the man I thought I knew. You're talking about selling our home, our life together, as if it's just a transaction. Is this really you, Jake? Disbelief and hurt were evident in my voice. He shrugged, a cold look in his eyes. It's practical, Emily. You're not going to make it, and I need the money to build my life. Besides, I would get this house anyway if you know. His words were like a knife twisting in my gut. The reality of his betrayal was worse than any suspicion I had harbored. I can't believe you, Jake. After everything, this is what it comes down to. Money and convenience? I was struggling to hold back tears. Jake seemed unfazed. Life goes on, Emily. Yours might not, but mine will. I need to think about my future. His brazenness left me speechless. I had imagined many scenarios, but nothing could have prepared me for the callousness I was witnessing. And you think you'll just get away with this? Selling our house? Leaving me with nothing while I'm fighting for my life? My voice trembled with a mixture of rage and pain. He shrugged again, a gesture that now filled me with revulsion. I'm doing what I have to. You can do whatever you want, Emily. It doesn't matter to me anymore. I felt a surge of resolve amidst the chaos of my emotions. I'll fight you on this, Jake, and the company will hear about how you treat your sick wife. You won't get away with this, he scoffed. Do what you want, Emily. I'm done here. With that, he turned and left, leaving a trail of coldness behind. I stood there, shaken to my core, realizing that the man I loved was a stranger to me now. I knew at that moment that this was a battle I had to fight, not just for my health, but for justice and dignity. After Jake left, a heavy silence filled the room. Mark and Sandra stood awkwardly, clearly wanting to escape the tense atmosphere. I couldn't blame them. Look, I'm really sorry about all this. We had no idea, Mark said, sounding genuinely apologetic. Yeah, we just wanted a place to stay. We didn't know about everything, Sandra added, her eyes full of sympathy. I gave them a weak smile. It's not your fault. You were just looking for a home. They offered to leave, but I insisted they stay. It wasn't their fault that Jake had dragged them into his deceit. After they left, I sat down on the couch, my mind racing. I felt betrayed, angry, and helpless. But amidst all those emotions, a fiery determination was taking shape. I wasn't going to let Jake walk all over me. The next morning, I called my lawyer and explained everything. He was shocked, but promised to help me fight this. Don't worry, Emily. We'll make sure he doesn't get away with this, he assured me. I felt a small glimmer of hope. With my lawyer's help, I would fight for what was rightfully mine. Next, I knew I had to confront Jake at work. It wasn't going to be easy, but I needed to face him. I wanted him to know that I wasn't going to back down. I arrived at the office, my heart pounding. As I walked through the halls, I could feel the eyes of my colleagues on me. They knew something was up. I knocked on Jake's office door and pushed it open without waiting for a response. Jake looked up, his face a mask of surprise and annoyance. Emily, what are you doing here? I'm here to tell you that I know everything. And I'm not going to let you get away with it, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Jake scoffed. What are you going to do? You're sick, Emily. You should be resting, not causing a scene. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I've spoken to my lawyer. We're going to fight you on the house, and I'm going to tell the bosses about what you've done. Jake's face hardened. You think you can scare me? Go ahead, tell them, see if I care. I met his gaze squarely. I'm not trying to scare you, Jake. I'm telling you what I'm going to do. You can't just throw me away because I'm sick. Jake leaned back in his chair, a smug look on his face. You really think you can win this? I'm not the bad guy here, Emily. I'm just trying to move on with my life. I felt a surge of anger. By selling our home? By leaving me with nothing? Jake shrugged. Life is tough, Emily. You should know that better than anyone. I shook my head, disgusted. I can't even recognize you anymore, Jake. You're not the man I married. Jake's expression didn't change. Maybe you never really knew me at all. With that, I turned and walked out of his office. I had said what I needed to say. Now it was time to fight. In the days that followed, my life turned into a whirlwind of paperwork, meetings, and strategy sessions. My health was improving, but my battle was far from over. With each passing day, I gathered more evidence to support my claim to the house. My larger financial contribution was a strong point in my favor, and I was determined to see this through. My lawyer was optimistic. Emily, you have a solid case. The numbers don't lie. And given the circumstances, it's unlikely a judge will side with Jake, he assured me over the phone. The relief I felt was palpable. Thank you, I replied. I appreciate your help more than you know. We're not there yet, but things are looking up, he cautioned. I understood. The legal world was unpredictable. But for the first time in a while, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. At work, the atmosphere was tense. My confrontation with Jake had become office gossip. Some colleagues whispered in corners, others offered quiet support. It was uncomfortable, but I couldn't let it distract me. I decided to meet with our bosses and lay everything out. It was a tough conversation, but necessary. I told them about Jake's betrayal, the house, everything. They listened, their faces a mixture of shock and empathy. We're so sorry, Emily. This is unacceptable, one of them said. The situation with Jake will be dealt with. This behavior can't be tolerated, the other added. Hearing their support was a relief. I didn't have to face Jake at work anymore. Days later, they called to tell me they had let Jake go. His actions didn't align with the company's values. It was a small victory, but it meant the world to me. My health was on the upswing. The treatments were working, and my doctors were hopeful. It was a glimmer of hope in a sea of chaos. One evening, as I sat in my small rental, contemplating my next steps, my phone rang. It was Jake. I hesitated but answered. Emily, please, we need to talk. He sounded desperate. What's there to talk about, Jake? I asked, my voice firm. I was wrong. I've been fired. I'm sorry, Emily. I didn't think it would come to this, he said, almost pleading. I took a deep breath. You hurt me, Jake. Deeply. I can't just forget that. I know, I regret it. Can we find a way to settle this without going to court? He asked, sounding beaten. After a short pause, I replied, I will not back down, never. There was silence on the other end. I understand. I'll have my lawyer contact yours, he finally said. Jake's call didn't change anything. He had shown his true colors, and there was no going back. I was a different person now, stronger and more determined. After the dust settled with the house and my divorce, I found myself standing at the beginning of a new chapter. It was a strange feeling, like stepping into the unknown after a long, turbulent journey. My health was improving, but the road to full recovery was still ahead of me. One afternoon, I was at the clinic for a checkup. The waiting room was quiet, just the hum of the air conditioner filling the space. When the nurse called my name, I followed her to the examination room. Dr. Simmons, my oncologist, greeted me with a warm smile. Good to see you, Emily. How are you feeling? Better, thank you, I replied, taking a seat. That's what we like to hear, he said, going over my chart. Your latest scans show improvement. The treatment is working. I exhaled a sigh of relief. That's great news. Yes, but remember, it's a long road. You need to take care of yourself, he reminded me. I know, and I will, I assured him. He nodded, satisfied. Good. We'll keep monitoring your progress. Leaving the clinic, I felt a mix of emotions. Hope, certainly, but also a sense of responsibility. This was my life, and I had to take charge of it. Back at work, I threw myself into my projects. It was a distraction, but also a reminder that I had a purpose beyond my illness and personal troubles. One day, I was in the break room when I overheard a couple of colleagues talking. Did you hear about Jake? He's trying to get his job back, one of them said. Really? After what he did? Good luck with that, the other replied. I stayed silent, stirring my coffee. Jake's choices were his own. I had my path to follow, and it didn't include him. After work, I met up with my friend Sarah for dinner. She had been a rock throughout everything. "How are you holding up?" she asked as we sat down. "I'm okay, taking it one day at a time," I answered. "That's all you can do, and hey, you're doing amazing," she said, offering a reassuring smile. I nodded. "Thanks, I couldn't have done it without your support." "We're in this together," she said, raising her glass. "To new beginnings." "To new beginnings," I echoed, clinking my glass with hers. The next few months were a blend of routine and small victories. Each doctor's visit brought good news. My strength was returning, and with it, a newfound determination to live life on my terms. The treatments had worked, and the doctors were optimistic. I was officially in remission. As I walked into the office that morning, I felt a sense of pride. I had not only kept my job through the toughest times, but also excelled. My team greeted me with warm smiles and congratulations. The workday was busy, but I didn't mind. Being productive gave me a sense of normalcy. Later, I met Sarah for lunch. She had been more than a friend. She was my pillar of strength. "You look radiant, Emily," she said as we sat down at our favorite cafe. "I feel it too, Sarah. It's like a new beginning," I responded, smiling. "And you deserve every bit of it." "So, what's next for you?" she asked, sipping her coffee. "I've been thinking about that. I want to give back, maybe volunteer at the cancer center. Share my story, help others," I said, the idea resonating with me more and more. "That's wonderful, Emily. You'll be amazing at it," she encouraged. After lunch, I went for a walk in the park. The sun was shining and the air was fresh. I took a moment to sit on a bench and just breathe. Life was precious, and I was here, living it. As I walked back home, my phone rang. It was my boss, Mr. Thompson. "Emily, good news. The board has approved your proposal for the new project," he said. "That's fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Thompson." "I won't let you down," I replied, excitement building up. "I know you won't. Keep up the good work," he said, before ending the call. Back at home, I reflected on my journey. From the shock of my diagnosis to the betrayal and divorce, it had been a roller coaster of emotions. But here I was, standing tall. I decided to write a blog post, sharing my story with the world. As I typed, the words flowed effortlessly. It was a story of pain, resilience, and ultimately, triumph. When I hit publish, I felt a sense of liberation. My story was out there, and if it could inspire even one person, it was worth it.